Today's topic requires at least a minimal knowledge about the factions in the Elder Scrolls Online, so if you're behind, no worries. Let me catch you up. The Aldmeri Dominion, ours by ancient right. Leader, the highly attractive Queen Irene. Races, High Elf, Wood Elf, Khajiit. The Daggerfall Covenant. One land, one emperor. High King Emmerich, Breton, Orc, Redguard. The Ebonheart Pact. We are as one. Joran, Nord, Dark Elf, Argonian. Most of us see the division of these nations and gleefully choose sides, but not everyone. No, there are some people in the Elder Scrolls community that say being forced into a race division is an attack on their freedoms. The freedoms to fight for the Ebonheart Pact as an Orc or Khajiit, or for the Aldmeri Dominion as a Dark Elf or a Nord. The only thing stopping players from doing this is Zenimax race restrictions. If you're set on playing a certain race, fate has you fighting on that race's faction. No rebelling, no role-playing as a double agent. Zenimax deems these race restrictions necessary. Let us know what you think, because it's today's hot button topic. Removing race restrictions. There's this guy on the Elder Scrolls, I think it's the Elder Scrolls Online forum, that is waging war against having races restricted to different factions, and he's doing it under the whole notion of freedom in my Elder Scrolls game. If I want to be a Nord mercenary, if I want to roleplay a Nord mercenary that fights for the Aldmeri Dominion, I should be able to do that, because this is an Elder Scrolls game. I should have that freedom. What do you think about that?
Again, I can understand why people think this and everything. They want the game the way they want it. They play it the way they want it. But it's an MMO. You can't go anywhere around it. It's an MMO. It's not a test game. But they're trying to make it as close to a test game as possible while it's still an MMO. So there are going to be some lines that they have to draw in the sand. So you have to stay on this side of the line. Otherwise, it's not an MMO anymore.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is that, okay, this would make... this could be done in single player. You could have a storyline that's like, I'm a Nord mercenary going to fight for the Aldmeri Dominion. But what we have to keep in mind, this is thousands of players we're talking about.
Potentially millions.
Potentially, yeah, hopefully millions if this ends up being what we hope it is. Imagine if you think that idea, okay, I want to be a Nord mercenary fighting for the Aldmeri Dominion. Okay, you're not the only one with that idea. There's going to be hundreds, even thousands of other players that want to do the same exact thing. And then what do we have? We have a PvP zone in Cyrodiil where there's an army of Nords fighting under the Aldmeri Dominion banner. And you're going, what the hell happened? You know, it's just, it doesn't work in an MMO. It wouldn't. We could have story arcs in the game that have like a Nord, I don't know, betraying his country or betraying his faction, but we can't open it up to players, or else it's simply chaos.
Yeah, there has to be rules implemented to make it a proper MMO to even work as an MMO. So that's why I'm for the race restrictions. They're there for a reason. We wouldn't have alliances without them.
Exactly. So I think we're definitely in agreement there. This is another part of it, though, is that players from one faction can't speak with players of another faction. And it's another hotly debated thing in the forums right now. One of the things, one of the forum posts I read was that this is a lore breaker, because they should all be able to speak with each other, which
Maybe they all speak different languages.
They actually do. I was actually reading down further, and this guy brought up the fact that although all the races speak the common tongue, which is called Tamrielic, is the common tongue, they still all speak their own languages. Apparently you can go either way. It can be lore friendly. So lore isn't a argument against at least it's not a good argument against the whole not being able to talk between factions. But anyway, do you think not being able to talk to an opponent on the other faction is a good thing, bad thing?
I don't think they should completely keep people from talking to each other. I think if you're within the vicinity of /say or /yell, then the other person should be able to at least read it, whatever. Okay. But if you wanted to like click on that person and then like send them a whisper, they shouldn't be allowed to see it.
Right.
Because like, for like a lore standpoint, I guess you can be like, it's treasonous to be even talking to the opposite faction. If you see someone, if you're close enough to talk to them, you should be killing them, not talking to them.
Right, you're close enough to kill them.
So, like, it should be treasonous to talk to them. So, I guess I'm kind of on the fence. Again, it's how they implement it. Do they just straight up say, no, you cannot even possibly talk? If the person is talking, they won't even see the person is talking, or they do like WoW, where it's just like gobbledygook. It's
zug.
Yeah, right. But I don't know. I would have to say if you're close enough to like yell out something and they type, /yell, hey, you're a douchebag, then they should be able to read it. Because if anything, it's just kind of I don't know.
I almost think that I fall more on the side that this is a good thing, and I'll tell you why. In World of Warcraft, I was super. I had faction pride. That and SWTOR were really the only two games where I felt a sense of faction pride more in WoW than in SWTOR. And one of those reasons I think, backing that up, was the fact that I couldn't communicate with the other guys. In World of Warcraft, there was no way to like team up with a guy of the opposite faction because there's no way to communicate with them. In SWTOR, do you remember that PvP zone in SWTOR that was totally? It was on. Is it called Ilum?
Yeah,
the planet it was on.
Whole thing is PvP.
Anyway, they weren't able to. That zone was like broken for the first couple months that game was out because basically Sith and Sith and Republic
didn't even attack each other. They just kind of took turns blowing up each other's whatever those landing shuttle thingies were.
Exactly, yeah. What you see the moment you see two enemy factions working together, talk about an immersion breaker. I mean, okay, I'm playing an MMO right now. We're just a bunch of gamers. We're not.
But I did enjoy the fact that we had that choice to either work with them or not, because there was plenty of a-holes out there that would not work with the other person and would just kill everyone.
Like it was fun getting around that mechanic and being like, man, I get to get my daily done super quickly because we're teaming up and working together. And
I liked having the choice because like I said, someone else could like say, no, I'm not going to work with him and just start trying to kill him. I didn't like when the developer stepped in and say, no, you can't be doing this, and fixed it.
Really? You didn't like that?
No, because I liked getting my stuff quickly.
Well, see, and that's the thing.
I wanted my dailies done.
It's like you need to remove yourself away from the situation, because I know I hated it that they fixed it too, because I was getting my dailies done in a matter of minutes, and now I couldn't do that anymore. I had to spend like an hour or so getting my dailies done. But from a perspective of making the game closer to reality, because... And Todd Howard has said this, whenever they approach an Elder Scrolls game, a Western RPG, it's about trying to make the game as closest to reality as possible. Where Eastern RPGs, it's much more like over the top, like crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you've
very elaborate.
Very crazy and stuff like that. Where Todd Howard says Western RPGs, it's much more, you get the whole gritty, and it's supposed to be as close to real as you can. So, seeing two enemy factions taking turns blowing up each other's equipment and stuff like that does not help build that sense of, okay, this is a wartime, this is a terrible conflict that our factions are engaged in. If anything, that takes away from the experience, and that's what I'm afraid of, and that's why I kind of more back up this whole idea that we can't speak with players of the opposite faction. But again, not a game breaker for me. I mean, there's some people that get really, really, really up in arms about it to the point where they're like, oh, I won't play if I can.
There's always going to be the people that, regardless of the reason for the implementation of things like this, it's always going to be like, I should be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it. The developer should not be able to tell me what I can and can't do in the game. But there are reasons for things like this. Because it can practically not ruin the whole entire game, but ruin a lot of aspects of the game. Such as PvP. Like, think of the scenario, okay, we are allowed to talk to the opposite faction. Okay, so a big guild on one alliance is talking to the head of another big guild on the other alliance. So they're having a nice conversation out in the PvE world. They're like, okay, let's go into the PvP, and we'll let you take over our stuff for a bunch of points or whatever, let you become emperor or whatever, and then it'll be our turn. And then we'll, see, you can't have that talking back and forth, because if they start, I guess you can say that'll happen regardless. Outside of the game, you can talk on forums and do it, but still, I don't think it should be allowed in the game.
Yeah, no,
for that scenario right there.
Exactly. It makes it way too easy to say, hey, let's just take turns doing this and knocking out our dailies in, or you're getting extra points in something. There's way too much potential for exploiting it.